Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Culture Encounters. I know you're here to see Chad as a host, but I am playing host. My name is Ama Gatti. I am the founder and executive director for Culture Encounters. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. Now, I have the host hat on because Chad is here actually today, and he is going to be our guest. All right, and we have an interesting conversation. Chad has a personal story he would like to share, and so we decided to switch roles where I play host today. Chad has been our acting instructor since we started when we were first known as Next Star Art, the Next Star Arts program, and over the years we've rebranded and we are now known as Culture Encounters, an organization that promotes cultural awareness and appreciation. And so I am so grateful to Chad for his years of service with us. I think it's 8 years since he's been with us. And now he's also switched roles and now is the host and executive director, not executive director, producer for our podcast. So without much ado, I would like to bring Chad on and we are going to have a great conversation. I'm really excited about that. So here he comes. Hi, Chad.
Hey, hey, wow, this is crazy. It's kind of cool being in the different seat this time, being in the hot seat this time. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
How does that feel? Is it pretty hot?
Yeah, scorching. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this and letting me tell my story today.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's awesome. I am so grateful to you. I just want you to know that I'm
Thank
grateful
you.
to you,
Sincerely.
that you are not just working with me on this team, but you are my friend. Outside of what we
Thank
do,
you.
we're friends. And so I am
That
so
means a
grateful
lot.
for you. Years. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we get each other, we have our
Yeah.
crazy moments, we have stories.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I'm
I
so
do.
grateful. I
And that
hope you
means a
know
lot to me,
that.
and I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so you approached me maybe a week or so ago about you wanting to share your personal story, which, by the way, I think is very brave of you because a lot of people are not able to comfortably share things that are really personal to them, and especially the nature of your story and, being bold to want to share it. And I know in our text messages, you wanted to share that. And I said, you know what? I don't want you to do that alone. I want to be right there with you when
Thank
you
you.
share it. So I am glad that you've allowed me into your personal story, into your personal space, and including me in that conversation. So thanks to you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, you are the person that I would want to be here with me for this. So
Oh,
that
you're
means a
kind.
lot. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So I am going to ask you a few questions and
Yeah,
then
please.
I'm not even going to spoil it. I'm just going to go straight into the question. And then through the questions, I guess we can have a conversation. So it's written down. So I do not forget because I do not wear the host hat all the
No,
time.
it's fine. It's all good. Yeah.
But yeah, so tell us about your story up until getting, and at this point, I'm spoiling the story, but up
It'll
until
be
the
it'll be on the
diagnosis,
tagline.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about your story, your journey, and maybe a little bit about growing up to where we are today, and why you and I are having this conversation as far as your diagnosis and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So gosh, it's kind of one of those things where you knew something was off. It's kind of like have you ever been in a situation, I'm sure many people have, where you feel like you're forgetting something. You feel like you're forgetting something always. It's always on the tip of your tongue. Like no matter what you're doing, there's always just like this little thing in the back of your head that something just isn't right. Um,
Mm,
and that's been me for as long as I can remember.
mm,
You know, I've always been different. Um, to a varying degree. I was as a child very shy, um, very shy, and also very weird. But I was bullied a fair amount. But before that, I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child, which was at a time when they didn't really know what that was.
mm,
We're talking the mid 90s at this point. So we knew as a child that I was neurodivergent or not neurotypical in
Mhm.
some capacity. And the ADHD diagnosis is correct. But uh, there was still like I would do things medicinally for that, like with prescription and also therapy in school and everything. And part of that therapy is you develop coping mechanisms, and those coping mechanisms can also, when it comes to neurodivergence, can are wonderful and great things, but they also turn into masking.
Mm,
You end up masking a lot of your behaviors, and
mm,
you end up sort of playing a character in a lot of ways. And that fast forwards to where we pivot a little bit to what we're really going to be talking about with today, which is ASD or autism spectrum disorders.
mhm,
Um, I, from the time I can remember, always loved sitcoms.
mm,
And I remember thinking about the way that they made me feel as a child, like really emotionally connecting to the characters. And they were kind of my safe place when the world outside my family was great, but like outside of my family, like the world was not always the safest place for me as a child, being different. So I found solace in these characters and the way they made me feel, and I found that I would almost looked at it academically, and I would study their behaviors. I would study what people did,
mm,
and I thought, well, if I do these things, maybe I'll fit in and I'll fit into society and I'll fit into whatever mold people want for me or whatever it is. And then it kind of clicked that if I like around high school, if I if I play this part of Chad in front of people, then they won't dislike me or they'll like me, and I'll
mm,
um and it ended up almost like feeling like I was hiding in plain sight a lot of the times, as far as a lot of the things about me that are non neurotypical. Um, things like I do things like from a physical perspective. I'll rock back and forth a lot. I'll bite my lip a lot. When I get really upset or distressed, I'll flap. Like I'll literally flap like a bird,
mm,
and get very upset, and not be able to necessarily emotionally regulate.
mhm,
Um, but these are things that you learn as you get older to either cope with. You learn coping skills to be
mm,
able to function, but you also learn to mask. Um, to mask these behaviors.
mm,
So that all kind of was the lead up. Was just kind of seeing all of these things. Having a lot of like special interests was another. Something was wrong.
mm,
I could tell you right now, I could spout off a bunch of statistics that are completely meaningless to like applicable life. But I could like, if you wanted to know a statistic about a certain band or statistical stuff about like pro wrestling or statistical stuff about baseball or any of just like my special interests, I could do it right now.
that's
And not
awesome.
and it's awesome. It's really cool, but it's a lot. Like I could tell you every single WWE champion from the year 1963 to now, right now, in less than 5 minutes.
Mm, wow.
And yeah, and it's because of like the special hobby element of autism. Because you look at things and you study them. But here's where we started noticing something was different, because you I would have all of this and would do well academically eventually, and have this skill set over here with like the special interests, but from a practical perspective, there are certain practical social interactions that I could not do.
Mm,
Um, like oh my gosh, just relationships with my friends. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of close friends that yourself included, that I've been able to maintain those friendships. But I've also had several that friendships, whether it be a friendship or like a relationship, that I have not been able to maintain,
mm,
because once the masking is over and you start to kind of peel back the layers a little bit, um, my personal habits would leave a um, kind of a what's the right word, would leave a mark, so to speak, where like they would there would become a dissonance with people.
Mm,
There would be a disconnect created. So I've got all of this, like I'm learning to play characters, to in my career with acting, I'm also playing a character,
mhm.
in my everyday life where it feels like I am. And as you get older, that gets harder.
Yeah.
It gets harder and more exhausting, and the relationships with the people in your life, the social situations get more stressful, as you try to kind of navigate those, navigate those social situations when you feel like you are constantly hyper. You end up feeling, you being me in this case, but you're super hyper aware of every single social situation to the point where you are on edge constantly,
Mm,
because you're trying to figure out what's going on, why, what's going, and I'm jumping around a lot. I apologize.
no, you're
Uh,
good.
you end up masking a lot of those behaviors, but also, when you're playing a character, the social situation can't always go the way you scripted in your brain. And
Right.
because it can't always go the way you scripted in your brain, you have to be adaptable, and then that contributes to the character that you're. And when I say character, I don't mean you're lying to people. You're
Mhm,
still
mhm.
you. You
Yeah.
are still you, but you are amplifying certain parts of yourself and hiding other parts of yourself.
Mhm.
And that gets exhausting to do. And then from, I don't know if this part, because I'm not a doctor and still doing the research on my own.
Right.
Um, I'm very good with like practice, or I'm very good with like theoretical knowledge, but
Mhm,
practical knowledge is a deficit for me.
mhm,
Living and functioning can be really stressful. Menial tasks like tying shoes, which we attributed to my dysgraphia,
mhm,
um, cleanliness, and not like being gross, but like, oh, dishes, clutter, organization, um, all of that is something that became very, very stressful. And still is, like those things like, oh, I'm stranded on the side of the road. I literally could not change this tire if my life depended on it. Like
mhm.
things like that. Like even if
Yeah.
like I've been shown how to do it, like it's still like I require. It got to a point where I like you have to, if there's like a task that needs to be done. I need to be like I need specific directions of like, okay, I need you to do this. Like
Mm,
and that was very frustrating for people that have lived with me in the past, because they're like, Chad, why don't you just do the dishes?
yeah.
And I'm like, I need you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And people, rightfully so, people don't want to do that. And I, when you're an adult, and I understand that.
Mhm.
Um, but so kind of to answer your question, got to a point where my mental health was just, I was so drained all the time. And Tristan, my girlfriend, who is such a support system for me,
Mhm. She is. She's
is,
awesome. She's awesome. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
She is a special education teacher, and
Mhm,
her and I were talking, and just like through conversation, basically being like, "Hey, do like just reading stuff on ASD. Do you think this is something maybe I might have?" And
mhm.
we kind of talked about it, and basically they're like, "You can't hurt to ask."
Yeah.
And my brother is my other big support system, and my mom. They kind of both agreed. And my coworker actually got a similar diagnosis. Um, and I'd been trying to get in somewhere, but again, tasks are hard, right? So
Right.
like even the task of like going and making an appointment to get tested for this
Mm,
was in itself a major like, what? How do I do that?
yeah.
Like how do I do that? What steps do you take? What do you do? To get to even go about doing that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that anyway, so eventually I, through my coworker, I did get in touch with somebody, and that kind of leads us up to the, all right, I'm gonna get tested. We're gonna
Yeah.
find out what has always been off. Like there's always been that feeling that I'm different, always been that feeling that something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Um, Always having that thought in the back of your brain, and all right, let's go figure out what that is.
Yeah. And so how long has it been from when you recognize yourself that something might be off until you actually got diagnosed? How many years has that been?
So that's an interesting question. So I kind of been the way it works with any sort of neurodivergency is you kind of sometimes you have to window shop a little bit. Like,
Mhm,
there's a little bit of trial and error with diagnosis. So I've had several diagnoses over the years. And the thing is, and I'm not a doctor, I much preface that with this.
mhm.
I am not, I have no medical degree. All of this is just through conversations I've had with
Right,
doctors.
right.
Um, but it's all kind of one big ASD and autism, autism and ADHD and OCD and a lot of that. There's a lot of overlapping cross pollination between symptoms. So
Mm,
it is very, very, very easy to diagnose one thing and miss something else.
right.
And maybe it's also a little, it's like a puzzle piece. So, which is,
Mm,
I think, why, like, in a lot of like the autism awareness, you get like the puzzle piece memorabilia
right.
because there's so many like little, like maybe like a little bit of OCD could also be a little bit of autism, and a little bit of that could also be ADHD.
Mhm,
So, long story short, based on my behaviors in college, I got diagnosed with ADHD and depression.
mhm,
Um, and then I was doing things, and I would be in and out of therapy, trying to do different things. Different behavioral therapies, but then also medicinal therapy. The two together, they work together. That
right.
honestly is how it should work. Is if you try just medicine without any sort of therapy, for me, in my opinion, it's
Mhm,
rough. And then vice versa. Every person's different.
right.
But for me, it would never really stick. It would
Mm,
be like, all right, cool, I'm better for a little bit, and then I would stop getting better. And I don't really remember if there was like a I feel like over the summer, my anxiety got really, really, really bad. Like it had been bad um, for several years. As I'm continuing to get older, my social situations would get harder.
mm,
Um, and I would have some situations like where I've lost some friends over the years due to decisions that they've made and decisions I've made.
mm,
Um, and they those emotionally were really hard for me. And the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm still not over this. Why am I not over this? And I'm like
right.
hearing other people be like, he can't let this go. Like
Mm,
all of these like negative things that had happened to me that were kind of molehills out of mountains, if that makes sense. Like
right.
and I'm like, okay, I'm struggling to emotionally regulate still. Um, we might as well at least see if these are the things that are going on. I
Right.
already know I had ADHD as a kid, so that at least gives us a starting point.
Right.
But seeing all of these signs and doing all the reading I'm doing on the way my brain works, but then how social interactions are really stressful and how I can't always pick up social cues and
Mm,
I overly read into social cues to the point where I get them wrong because I'm over analyzing them. And just seeing all of that and like, all right, that was kind of I would say this summer
yeah.
is when I got really serious about it. And then started the process. I, through my coworker, got in touch with a therapist in the West End of Enrico,
Mhm,
and went to see her, and we talked. Um, I think we met 3 or 4 times.
okay.
Um, we first met just like for her to get to know me and
Mhm,
have a conversation about my life and my childhood and stuff, and then we had to actually wait a couple weeks after that because they are so booked up.
mm,
Um, And after that, I went and took like a test, like a literal test,
yeah, yeah,
for ADHD and then one for autism. Autism was more of a questionnaire and then
mhm,
a question, like an anonymous questionnaire through, you pick two people. I picked my girlfriend and my brother.
mm,
Um, and we kind of like, based on my behaviors. And then the third time was she has time to look and analyze the data and then make her prognosis.
right.